You know, there's something about flying that brings out the absolute best and worst in people. It's as if the moment you step onto a plane, you are thrust into a sort of social spotlight where everyone's judging each other in this awkward, invisible contest. Let me take you back to a day that flipped my world upside down. It was on flight 448 on my way to London. Picture this, I stepped onto that plane wearing a Dashiki bright colors, intricate patterns, a unique piece my aunt had lovingly crafted for me. I remember looking at myself in the mirror before leaving home feeling a swell of pride, a connection to my roots. This wasn't just clothing, it was a statement, an embodiment of my culture. But as soon as I walked down the aisle, that pride quickly morphed into something else entirely. I noticed the flight attendants sharing quick glances and whispers, their giggles slicing through my confidence. I could practically hear the judgment ringing out like a school bell. Look at him in that getup. It stung. Yes, I made a bold choice, but it was a choice steeped in tradition and my identity. Yet here I was suddenly aware that I wasn't just a passenger, I was a target. One of the attendants, let's call her Lisa, stopped me as I reached my seat. Can I see your boarding pass? She asked with a sass that suggested she needed her coffee refilled. I handed it over, but I could see the needle scratch across the record in her brain. Oh, row 15, not too high up. Should be an easy flight for you. I must have missed the joke there. I forced a smile, clenching my jaw as I slid into my seat. As the pre-flight safety instructions droned on, I kept catching snippets of their conversations over in the galley. He really thinks he can pull that off, was just one of the gems I overheard. I felt that familiar heat of anger rise through me, but I also felt a wave of anxiety. Should I confront them? Should I stay quiet? The internal debate raged like a storm. But then my hand found my phone. Somewhere deep down, I knew I wanted the last laugh. Instead of letting their mockery haunt me, I decided to take a different route. I opened up the messaging app and found the CEO of Stratus Air, a name I'd heard frequently mentioned for his direct approach to customer service, Alexander Reed. I typed out my experience from the laughter to the disheartening comments and hit send. My heart was pounding. Did I really just do that? To my surprise, his response was almost instantaneous. Thanks for bringing this to my attention. Can you meet me at the airport when you land? My nerves kicked in again, but this time it was a whirl of hope and curiosity. When we touched down in London, I was met by the CEO himself. There he was, tall and serious, but his eyes held a warmth that somewhat eased my tension. He invited me to sit down, and I could tell he was genuinely interested in hearing my story. As I relayed the events, even the smallest pulse of anger faded, replaced by a sense of empowerment. I can't condone that behavior, he said, his demeanor shifting from sympathetic to resolute. It's unacceptable. We pride ourselves on inclusivity, and this is a serious breach of that. I assure you this will not go unnoticed. There it was a glimmer of justice. He expressed his apologies both for the flight crew's actions and on behalf of his company. Then he turned the conversation towards making things right. I'll be suspending the attendants involved, he stated firmly. In that moment, I felt like David beating Goliath, not with a sling, but with the truth in my voice. It wasn't about trying to get someone fired. It was about standing up for what was right. As I left that airport, I felt lighter, more empowered than I had in a long time, like a weight had been lifted. I had faced judgment not just from the flight attendants, but from the world itself, and I stood my ground. It made me realize that pride wasn't just wearing a beautiful outfit, it was about owning who you are, no matter the judgment from others. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been underestimated or judged for who you are? How did you respond? Let's dive into this conversation in the comments below. Discuss the fine line between right and wrong and the impact of speaking up against discrimination. It's often said that the things we wear can carry powerful messages. In my case, that dashiki transformed from a beautiful piece of clothing to a symbol of resistance. Let's reflect on the strength we find in our identities, the courage to confront prejudice, and how sometimes, just sometimes, cultural symbols can be catalysts for change.